I believe that God blesses those who give. I believe that God blesses those who give. Thank you. Okay. That'd be nice. That's it right there. That would be great. God blesses those who give. It's not an easy lesson. It's not something that's easy to absorb because we tend to, at least in the Western society, to hold on to things and want to hold on and not to give. Yet God blesses those who give. And speaking of God's blessing, I think that there is a special spot in Christ's heart for single mothers. I think that Christ loves especially single mothers. Single mothers are, I believe, the unsung hero of our time. I've shared with you that it's very difficult for Christy and I to raise Elijah and our 10-week-old son, and Ethan, and for me to lead and serve a church. It's difficult to juggle all of these things together. In fact, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I cannot imagine having Christy do it by herself. I can't imagine myself doing it alone. Single mothers raise kids, they take care of themselves and their household, and somehow they are able to survive. In our ancestry, in everyone's ancestry in this building, we have a single mother in our lineage. Somewhere along the line, one of our great-great-great-grandfathers died in a war, died of pestilence, left, was an alcoholic, whatever the reason was. Somewhere in our lineage, maybe it was our mother, maybe it was our grandmother, our great-great-great-grandmother, somewhere along the line we had a single mother. And if you have the strength of resilience today, if you have strength of yourself, and if you are able to overcome things, you have learned that through the single mother that has been passed along through your ancestry. God has a special spot in God's heart for single mothers. St. Mary herself, Jesus' mother, at one point in her life, became a single mom. We know of Joseph at the time that Jesus was 12, and then he disappeared. It's greatly believed that Joseph was significantly older than Mary, and that he had most likely died somewhere after the time that Jesus was 12. And she single-handedly raised Jesus, which I don't think would be easy, and raised all the other children that she had, and perhaps the children that maybe Joseph had from the previous marriage. Her hands. Can you imagine, first of all, raising the Son of God? That's not easy. And then to raise other children who might be a little jealous of Jesus, and then doing that by yourself. There is a soft spot in God's heart for single mothers. Our two lessons today, one from the Old Testament, one from the Gospel, are about single mothers. They're referred to as widows. They're single mothers. They are having to live on their own. The first one we hear about, both women are unnamed. First one that we hear about, I believe, was a rather wealthy woman. She had a household. She had a house that had an upper chamber, which was a guest room for Elijah to stay in. She was doing all right for herself at some point. But there was a severe famine across the land. What had happened is it hadn't rained for years and years. And the folks that were of the lower economic ladder, they had figured out a way to survive. They could do it. The wealthy couldn't. They didn't know. They don't work with their hands. They don't know how to survive in this type of climates. And everyone in this region was suffering from this great recession. She was suffering, and Elijah was sent. Elijah, the greatest prophet from God, was sent to her. And when he arrives on the scene, she is gathering sticks to make a fire, to make bread, to have the last meal with her only son, and then they will die of starvation. This is the scene that Elijah comes into. God blesses those who give, is what I believe. He arrives on the scene and he asks for some water. And she went, yeah, whatever. All right, cool, water, I can do that. You know we're going to die, by the way, but here's some water. And then Elijah was told by God to ask for some bread. God knows she doesn't have enough bread. God knows that. And yet, he's asked anyway. So Elijah said, and since you gave me, while you're up for some water, can you go ahead and give me some bread too? I'm a little hungry. And that's when she explained, look, I only have enough food for my son and I to have this one last meal together. And then we're going to die of starvation. I imagine she also told Elijah her story. My husband has passed away. I have this entire household I can't support anymore. I've got a house that's way too big. I don't know what to do with it. I can't afford the payments anymore. I am at my wit's end. I'm going to have this last meal and I'm going to die. God has a special spot in God's heart for single mothers. God has a special spot in his heart for those who give. God has an even more special spot in his heart for single mothers who give. Do you guys know of a single mother who gives of her time and her talent and her treasure? That's amazing. That is a blessing. And so what does this woman do? She takes some bread and she makes it for Elijah. She doesn't have enough for herself, and she makes it for Elijah. And then here's where the miracle occurs. I believe that God blesses those who give. The food did not run out. She had enough food for them to survive on. That's a miracle enough, and we can end the story right there. But God doesn't end the story right there. Her son becomes ill, and the life of breath inside of him is no longer there. And she gets angry at Elijah. She gets angry at God. And I think we'd all agree. She's got a reason to be angry. So Elijah takes this child up into his upper room, and he throws himself on the child 3 times, and the child comes back to life. What had happened, by the way? What would happen if that woman said, look, I'll give you some water, I won't give you any bread? They'd all be dead by now. But because she gave, that allowed Elijah to survive and live, and then he was able to ask for God's blessings, and her household was to remain intact. God blesses those who give.